most meaningful parts of the program when we lay our wreaths in memory. So what we're going to do, ladies and gentlemen, there are a number of you who will be laying wreaths in representation of your various organizations. We will be calling you up in groups. So I'm going to ask, first of all, that the Canadian Warplane Heritage Museum and the Canadian Warplane Heritage Volunteers, would you come forward, please, and lay your wreaths?
Okay, so we're running a little late here, so they've cut Brenda Johnson at this point from the service, but at this point, this will be the laying of the wreaths up in this first group. Dean Allison, MP Niagara West Glanbrook, who we just heard from, obviously. Tim Hudak, the City of Hamilton 424 Squadron, and 1st Binbrook Scouts will be laying wreaths at this point. Dave Pridham, I should have mentioned when I introduced you earlier, you're the interim curator here at the Canadian Warplane Heritage Museum. So many groups wanted to come and be part of this year, didn't they?
The ceremony keeps getting bigger every year. And it reached the point this year where we actually had to start saying no to people who wanted to lay wreaths, and it's a shame. We didn't want to, but in order to keep the ceremony short, we already have 26 wreath bearers today, and we probably turned away just as many.
Yeah. Now tell me, do each of the wreaths have different significance?
Absolutely. I mean, they all have different symbols. I think really the core of laying the wreath is to give each group, each organization a chance to personalize their remembrance, really. This whole ceremony evolved right after the First World War, really as a way for people to mourn and to honor, especially after that war when so many soldiers' bodies weren't even found. And this was the only way that people could pay their respects. And so bringing this personal touch and being able to customize your own wreath and put it on there is very important.
And I do love seeing the Scouts and the Girl Guides up there as well. You know, that's certainly a touching aspect to this as well, of course. Coming up in the second group here of people laying wreaths, this will be the John C. Munro International Airport, the RCAF RAF Fighter Command, the RCAF Women's Division, and the RCAF Bomber Command. So heavily, very clearly grouped as an Air Force and aeronautical theme to this group, right?
That's right. Yeah, the Air Force is coming out. Of course, we expect to see a lot of Air Force veterans here, but I've seen some Navy and some Army out there today too. But of course, we have to have a core group of Air Force.
Of course,
this would be it.
This is the Canadian Warplane Heritage Museum, after all.
That's right.
Clearly a somber moment there as they pause and reflect. So much of today is about reflection and, of course, remembrance. And you know, when you watch them laying the wreaths as they are, very slowly, very carefully, right? There must be so many emotions, I'm sure, for the wreath bearers going through their minds.
Absolutely. You can see it on their faces. I mean, the two that are just sitting down there, Irene Sobering and Bruce, they're both veterans. They were just on the morning show on Friday.
Oh, yeah.
They were both in the war. Bruce himself, he had to ditch at one point in the Irish Sea, floating around in a dinghy for hours with 4 other guys. Irene Sobering, her husband George, passed away in recent years. He was a Lancaster pilot. So, of course, so many memories for them. And you can see it as they walk.
It's in their faces, absolutely. Now, in this third group here, this is the Hamilton Police Service, Canada Border Services, the Ontario Correction Services, Canada Forces Recruiting Service, and the Ulster Purple Star. What's that group? Do you know, David?
I'm not actually familiar with the Ulster Purple Star, I'm afraid.
Okay. Well, we'll try to get some information on that, but again, clearly that is very sort of policing theme to the third group there.
Corps of Commissionaries, Royal Orange Lodge, number 2123, and
And the fourth group of the 26 wreaths being laid today will include the Retired Firefighters Association, Salvation Army, a group representing Asia 1941 to 45, Second World War, the Canadian Corps of Commissionaires, the Loyal Orange Lodge 2123, and the Ontario Association of Registered Nurses, laying wreaths here at this point. This is the fourth of 5 groups. Again, you were saying 26 wreaths being laid this year, and that unfortunately you even had to turn some away this year. That just shows the incredible demand and respect that people have on a day like today as well.
Absolutely. Yeah, 2012, this is still so important to so many people. I think Afghanistan is probably making it more immediate for a lot of people. Thousands of veterans in the country now that have served, and too many that have lost their lives.
It's amazing, too, to think that, of course, we're now just 6 years for marking the 100th anniversary of the end of the First World War, too. I mean, that will be, I'm sure, quite a spectacle as well at that point.
Absolutely.
Now, this is the 5th and final group laying wreaths this afternoon. We now have representatives from Veterans Affairs Canada, the RAF Regiment, IODE, the RCAC 779 Squadron, and also a group this afternoon of Norwegian veterans.
So a lot of people don't realize that actually when Norway was invaded by the Germans in 1940, some Norwegians escaped to Britain and they wanted to join the Air Force, so Britain sent them here, and they actually established their own flying school on Toronto Island for a while.
Really?
Yeah, one of our aircraft is commemorated to them in their colors, but they were flying out on Toronto Island.
Isn't that fascinating? That's a nice touch, of course.
And now I ask you to stand verses 1, 5, and 6. O God, our help in ages past. Please be seated, ladies and gentlemen. Well, it was bound to happen that I would forget somebody who was very important to us in my acknowledgements. Brenda Johnson is our counselor for Ward 11. Brenda, my sincere apology. We owe you double time next year, okay? Okay. Brenda, thank you for coming. I tell you, Brenda is a great supporter of this museum, and we're always glad that she is here. Now it's time, this is the part that I really enjoy. I enjoy all of it, but this is the part that, well, it's a pleasure to do what I do now, and that is to introduce some very important people to you. We've a lot of people in our audience today who you see wearing uniforms, and you see wearing their blazers and crests and the headwear from their various associations. These are the people who served. I want to ask all the young men and women in the audience who have served in Afghanistan, please stand. I'm going to ask all of you who are with us, who are veterans of the war in Korea, but especially veterans of World War II, please stand. There are quite a number of you who are here today who have served with the United Nations peacekeeping, and some of you served in NATO and NORAD, and other people who have been members of the Canadian forces and maybe didn't participate in NATO or NORAD or whatever, but just were always there. People who served in the reserve forces. We have men here from the Royal Air Force Regiment, among our most loyal of attendees at this event, and other people who served in other allied forces under the Crown, and some even from the United States. Would all of you stand, please? There's a fellow here who I think we should acknowledge because he was around really before any of the rest of us were around. He's seen it all. He still passes his driver's test every year or so, and he comes out here a lot and volunteers, which is rather remarkable because on his next birthday, he'll be 102. Ernie Weeks is out here. Still want to play golf, Ernie? Wish I could pass my driver's test. Want to acknowledge the people who make this such a wonderful event. Of course, the fabulous choir from Redeemer College. Every year you come and you make this such a wonderful event. And of course, what would we do without the fabulous Meadowlands Salvation Army Band?
All right, and this about wraps up our ceremony here, the Remembrance Day Ceremony 2012 at the Canadian Warplane Heritage Museum. There was just an amazing series of acknowledgements for all the veterans here today. David Pridham, you among them as well. Congratulations and thank you to you and to all the veterans. I want to ask you very quickly about the medal you're wearing.
Absolutely. So the medal is called the General Campaign Star. You can see mine has an ISAF bar on it, which means I served in Afghanistan. Yeah. Some of the Air Force fellows here from 424 have the medal without the bar because they flew in and out constantly. People who've done more than one tour get extra bars on top of it as well.
If I could get a quick final thought from you two on just what you think of today's ceremony, how big this is getting. We have about 30 seconds remaining.
Wow, well, it's fantastic. Yeah. We like the way it's going. If it gets much bigger, I don't know if we'll have capacity to seat everyone, but we're so glad that everyone came out. It's a fantastic event, but it's not the same if people don't come and remember.
It really is phenomenal. The tributes are very fitting. And David, thank you for your time and sharing your thoughts with us today. Do appreciate that. We want to thank everybody, of course, who watched from home and, of course, who came out here to the Canadian Warplane Heritage Museum. Of course, it's been CHCH-TV's pleasure to bring this to you live, uninterrupted, and commercial-free. Again, this is Remembrance Day, lest we forget.